growing up, right? You said you started some companies when you're 11, 12, 13, 14, like
Yeah.
super young, right? Um, tell take me in your mind back then, right? Like was what was the motivation there to just be out helping your community, but also having business cards as young as, again, like 11, right? What was that like? What were your influences too?
Um, my influences are just honestly the goals and dreams I have in life. And I think the best part about it, and I have I do a small business now, www.hooked.up.us. I
For
like to
sure.
sell hats and beach bags and stuff like that too. And I was talking to my mom the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, every time you hear like the little Shopify cha-ching like notification, every time, I don't care like when it is, like I still get excited like I did when I was a little kid. And I think that's really what it was. Like they don't really want to sit around the house and do nothing, So you get out like, hey, can I cut your grass? That turns to one thing, and like you get paid a wage, and you're like, hey, okay, like how can I scale this? How can I make more money? How can I? I think that aspect of it was, I think at that point it was just such a juvenile thing for me that once you start like making it, and you feel it, and you feel your work, you put in the energy, you just love it. I fall in love
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were some of the, do you remember starting your first business? Like, do you remember the
That's
idea, like the thought of just like, I'm gonna do this and I'm also gonna charge people for it?
a good question. Honestly, probably those yard things. I was the eldest, so I was cutting the grass anyway. Like I didn't have to buy a lawnmower. I was using the one of my mom's. But
Hmm.
when it broke, I didn't have really money to fix it because I'm like young and just didn't know like save. I was just buying dumb stuff. I'm like 11, right? But I did start learning how to fix those machines, and I think that's probably the best part about it. That's probably the first. And from there, I always like cars. I'm a car guy, so washing and detailing cars, it's just like ASMR for me.
Nice.
And then dog walking and stuff. Like no one wants to get up and clean up after the dog at 6 in the morning. So it's like, and I was a kid, so I wasn't doing anything. It's like, hey, but yeah, that's those are probably the first big ones. I kind of just kicked it off and did it for a few summers and moved to like separate neighborhoods. I dragged the lawnmower like on my bike with the gas, and I think one of my greatest days I made $300 in a day, and I was like 12. And I remember like right before I'd eclipsed like the 300 mark, I was walking down this hill just going back to my place, and someone drove on the side of the road. They're like, "Hey, we just saw you. You're asking to cut yards. We want you to do ours." Like, pay $30. I'm like, cool. And now that hit like the 300 mark, and dude, I just like sat at home. I was just like counting 20s. Like it's like the greatest day ever. It's like I love it, man. I love it. I love the accomplishment. Like you did something.
Love that. Love that for sure. It's kind of do you remember do you remember the first thing that you bought like with that money that was just like the first memory of not only just making the money but like also spending it as well?
I was super into watches, man, and I still am. Like on
I
my
see
tattoos,
that.
I wear a watch all the time. You probably never, I swear to you, you probably never see me not wearing one. But that I remember I go to the Kmart around the corner from my house, and I buy like a watch. It was like $25, 30 bucks. Like look nice, and I didn't even have it fitted, but I was like, that's how when I like wear it to school. People like, oh my god, it's a cool watch, yada yada yada. But I've always liked like watches, and that was probably what I was spending my money on the most, like in the early days. Probably stupidly, but I still have a lot of them that I bought. So it's like,
Each watch tells a story. Each watch has its
yeah, oh
own.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
for sure. And then what about any family influences, right? You mentioned, your mom already. Were there any types of influences you had with money growing up as well?